Howdy, y'all. Sorry for yesterday. It's tough when I'm up in Toronto being able to do the webcasts. So we're making it up today by actually doing one.
Look, you can see Kaya's here, but no, she just misses the camera. Oh well.
Yeah. If it's not Kaya, it's Perla sleeping on the couch.
Making me pet her, so I could pet and do a show at the same time.
There you go. You can multitask.
I am.
Okay, I know you want to talk about a concert that you were at last night, but I know that other people probably are playing a sad violin for my little story here. But when you have to work and there's something you really want to see, or a concert or something, it really sucks because and just yesterday on Facebook, it said, and I'm not a big Lyle Lovett fan, so that part of it is not something I'm sad I'm missing.
I'm happy that you're not.
Yeah, but Lyle Lovett and Sean Colvin, who I've seen about 4 or 5 times, and is fantastic. They're playing at the University of Buffalo Center for the Arts, and as soon as I see the tickets are going on sale, I think tomorrow, and as soon as I look at the date, I'm like, I know something's going on there, and I go to my calendar and I look, and it's the night of the Leafs Sabres game in Buffalo, and I'll be covering that game, and I cannot miss it.
I saw Sean Colvin once too. I went to a show out in North Carolina. We were visiting friends, and on a lark, we saw Sean Colvin, Jackson Brown, and Bonnie Raitt. They were all traveling together. And man, it was a deluge. It was storming. They played through the whole rain. We were like at the end, it was like rigor mortis. It wasn't cold, but it's just when you get soaked for 2 hours. But the show was fantastic, and she was really good. No question about it.
Yeah, actually, I saw that group, and I think for some reason, because they were on the Tonight Show during that tour, and for some reason, I think like Bruce Hornsby or something else like that. And I'm a big Bruce Hornsby fan. He joined them as well. I think it was him, but
yeah, Hornsby was there. Yeah,
and I've seen him a dozen times. But who did you go to see last night?
I saw All Time Low. They're a band out of Baltimore. They were in Sayreville, New Jersey, so it's about a hour and a half from my house. Really good. It was their 10th year anniversary, so they played like a whole album from 10 years ago, and that was fun. And what was interesting, there's a couple things. This is a trend now. We saw that Fake Yes was doing that for a while,
right?
And
well, it started with. It started with Leonard Skinner because, and you can say, okay, fine, but because most of them died in the plane crash.
Yeah.
But it was like Leonard Skinner, and nobody from the original band was. It was Van Zant's brother.
Right.
And it's not Leonard Skinner. I mean, just
got Van Zant in the name, Mike. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I know, but still,
I'm kidding. I know. But with this one, it's all the originals, and it's it's 10 years later. I'd seen them once before in Philly. And what's interesting is they have a big hit called Hey Maria, and they had to do it third because it was third on the album, and that's the way they close their show every concert. So I think
they did it in album order, is what you're saying.
They did it in album order, and I think it was about third. And they did it again to close it just because that's what they're used to doing. So they played 2 different renditions of it. So it was interesting. But it was a good show, and these guys are very appreciative. It's sort of like catching Green Day, 10 years into it.
Yeah.
And I did catch Green Day 10 years into it a while back, and just a little before that, and these guys just a little before that. So it's it's fun to see. We were really close in a small venue, and we like that. My ears are still ringing though.
Yeah, there is something about seeing a band or a performer like before they hit it big in a small venue and saying I was there. Now, I wasn't there for these, but whenever that comes up, it's like there was a small venue in Buffalo called Uncle Sam's. That's basically a less than a mile away from where I grew up, and it was always this small concert venue, and the Police played there in 1978 on their first tour. of North America, and there were like 3 people in the bar. So it's like, you know, and I think my brother knew one of the 3 people who was there because it was basically walking distance from his house, so he could drink and not have to not risk getting a DWI. The other one was U2, who played. I think it was their first album. Maybe it was Boy. In 1980, and they always bring it up when they come to Buffalo because the date that they played in Buffalo was the day that John Lennon was assassinated.
Oh, okay.
So they always remember that. Oh, I was in Buffalo, and then when we heard about Lennon.
Here's my recommendation to people. I know you always want to see, excuse me, the big headline band, you know, the one with all the hits and everything, but you pay for that, and you sit 3 miles away for that.
Right.
Where some of these bands, if you start listening to some of the, you know, indie music, some of the less traveled music. Now, these guys have sold a lot of albums and they have a pretty big fan base, but it's not massive. They did sell out Wembley, but they're not like U2 or anything like that. But the thing is, you could still have a great concert experience, be close, and really get to see these guys in action. Whereas, like for you, for the U2 show, you know, how far away were you?
Oh, I mean, I wasn't there. I was 13 years old. I mean,
no. I mean,
you mean for the one at the stadium? Oh God, I was in the upper deck. I was as far away as you could get. The stage was in the end zone. I was in the upper deck at the far end, at like in the 10th row. So Bono was like that big. Yeah,
the only one further away was maybe Bono's mother on the phone. I mean, that's you know, I mean, but that's what I'm saying.
She had better sound quality. She had long distance connection.
And I got to tell you something. You don't always have to spend exorbitant prices. These tickets were priced at like $26, and I think after fees and garbage, it came out to like $40-50 a ticket.
That's the only reason I went to U2. I mean, and not to be a cheapskate, but that's the only reason I went. I wanted to see U2, but the last couple times they played in Buffalo, they played the hockey arena. They played the KeyBank Center, and it's 20,000 seats. So they had to get their bang for the buck. It was $150 to $200 for even an upper deck ticket. Yeah. So you know, I was never going to pay that because I think it's patently. Let's just say this: the only I would have paid that for McCartney because McCartney sold out in 5 seconds. The only band I would spend $200 or more is if Genesis ever got back together. Other than that, there's not a chance in hell. Then
this band sold out this small venue in an hour. Less than an hour.
Yeah.
But if you catch on to these things, you know, I saw Green Day for $50 in Philly before the tour. They were warming up before the tour. Did I have to wait online for like 3 hours? Yes, on the day of the show, but it was still worth it.
I would say 5 years. I would say 5-6 years ago, I was still in tune with like what I would say, just to use as a loose term, modern music. You know, music that was being played on the radio. I saw a list. Somebody posted a list of the top albums of 2017, and I never listened to one song and any of the top 10. And that just shows I'm completely out of touch because I don't listen to music on the radio anymore. I listen to my iPod and I download everything. So I'm picking and choosing. And I don't know who the hell.
You're doubly screwing the industry because most people stream and I don't stream either.
Yeah. You know, I don't know who that. I know who Kendrick Lamar is, but I don't know who Kendrick Lamar is. So anyway,
it's interesting. I don't pretend to be able to keep up but what I do is I still support bands, young and old, that I like that keep rock and roll music alive because that's still my favorite genre. And so like that's the big thing. I don't want rock and roll music to go away, because you know auto-tune and not playing instruments is like the first step in that process.
Yeah, and honestly. The two bands that I've seen most recently in concert are the two most prominent rock and roll bands, and that's U2 and the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton after that. There's some, but there's not a ton, and that's depressing. Anyway, let's get talking hockey. X should be with us in a few minutes. We'll talk some rumors and trades and things of that nature, but we'll start. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 20th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Russ, let's start with the game that I was at last night yesterday afternoon
Yeah.
in Toronto, the 100th anniversary next century game as it was billed between the Maple Leafs and the Carolina Hurricanes. And it was discovered by it's funny, a guy who I know named Kevin Gibson, who works for TSN. He does a lot of
I follow him on Twitter.
Stats research. He dug up and found out that the original game, the Toronto Arenas versus Montreal Wanderers, December 19th, 1917, was not played at 2 p.m. It was played at 8.
I was questioning that because in my own household, when the game was on, I was asked, why 2 o'clock? And I said, I don't know. I guess they played at 2 o'clock, but it was during the week. And I said, oh, wait a minute. It's back in 1917. It probably was the weekend. And I'm like, but then why were they playing at 2 o'clock? Thank you, Kevin Gibson. I had a feeling there was something wrong with that.
Yeah, and the explanation that I heard through the grapevine was they wanted to do it a weekday afternoon game closer to Christmas. That would be for the next century for like the kids. And I always have a little bit of a problem with that because I mean
but they didn't do that. They played at 8 o'clock.
No. For yesterday's game.
The Leafs did that, yes.
Yeah, that was the reason why.
That's the reason, not because they played it to it.
Right. No, I mean, everybody assumed that it was 2 p.m.
Right.
because they had played on that day at that moment. But no, it was because they wanted an afternoon game.
Oh, was yesterday a holiday?
No, that's the thing. It was a work day. And that's
you got to take off from school. You're still asking your kid to – I still got to write a note.
I don't like, and okay, I know that like on the scoreboard, the intentions were good, but I then heard again, sort of through the grapevine, that this was the hottest ticket for like the guys on Bay Street who were, the traders on Bay Street who wanted to go to the game because they could go to the game,
and go back to work.
Well, no, not go back.
No, they just take off early. They just
take off early, go to the game, then they can go out to dinner and drinks and stuff like that, and it's still like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
It's the shank of the evening.
Yeah. So, but that being said, the Leafs wore throwback Toronto Arenas jerseys. That, as much as I give thumbs down to the jersey that they wore at the Big House for the Winter Classic a few years ago, I didn't like that sort of
I wasn't a big fan.
That oblong leaf. It looked like somebody that like Andy Warhol had designed something. It was a simple, Big T Arenas jersey, dark blue with white line. It was really sharp. The players seemed to like it, and I don't buy jerseys, but back in the day when I did, this would be one that I would have thought about buying. But the
only thing is that one would have been made out of wool. Mm-hmm. And not space-aged material that is sweat-proof.
Right, that is true.
But I do like the jersey as well.
Yes. Now on the ice, the Leafs had lost 3 games in a row. They had been for most of the month of December playing what I would consider sort of a I can't say it was a neutral zone trap, but they're trying to play like get the lead early.
It's chip it out hockey, man.
Yeah, get the lead early. Try to play responsible zone defensively, cut off the middle of the ice, that type of game. I think Babcock is basically this is like, defensive hockey 101. And maybe he figures that they've got such a big lead on a playoff spot that they can afford to do this. And also Austin Matthews is out of the lineup. Well, that was nowhere apparent yesterday because they came out, they got a shorthanded goal early. They got 4 goals in the first period and then held the lead, and then got 4 more in the third period. And I have to switch the focus here before going back to the Leafs on Scott Darling, because he was a sieve yesterday.
Yeah.
And, I can't blame him on a couple of the goals because, Komarov and Marner hit it off the post. Komarov picked top corner. But it was 8 goals, and Peters kept him in after 4 in the first period, and I think it was 14 shots. He settled down a little bit, but he didn't stop anything. He really didn't make a stop that made a difference. And even Bob McKenzie today on TSN radio said, they traded for this guy. They signed him to a 4-year contract thinking he was the future number 1. And you and I were both skeptical about this because
we had seen I had seen a fair amount of Darling in different situations and just felt like he really was not a great even positional goalie. Like that's how Cam Talbot does it. He's an excellent positional goalie, and that part's worked out. But if you don't have everything down perfect, being a positional goalie, because he's not the fastest, right? He's a pretty big guy, and his glove hand, we've seen it. It could be a little shaky. Then it's going to be harder to pull off, and it is. And so the Leafs killed him yesterday, destroyed him.
Yeah, and it was mostly the line of Van Riemsdyk, Bozak, and Marner. Marner had his best game. Well, it's career high 4 points, best game of the year. I think he had 3 assists against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
but you know, Marner is a very intuitive player. It's one of these guys where, you know, he's not the fastest player in the league. He doesn't have the best shot in the league, but he's got that sort of innate hockey IQ.
He knows where the play is going. He anticipates well, and then also knows where to go in the open spots on the ice when he's looking for a pass. So
yeah, and anybody looking for an example of that, look at the goal that Tyler Bozak scored, where Marner basically turned the Carolina defense into pretzels. He cut back, he cut to the middle, he fed Bozak. It actually looked like a fanned pass, but he got to him anyway, and he put it through Darling's legs. So, you know, Carolina, you know, we know that the Metro Division is extremely tough. We know it's extremely tight. But again, I renew my concerns about Carolina in the sense that there's a lot of talent there, but
they got to switch to Cam Ward. I said it a week ago.
Well, I don't know if you can consider Darling a strikeout after 1 year. All I know is that
but I think right now I got to make the switch. Well, I have Cam Ward.
Right, but the other concern.
I'll worry about the rest later, right?
The other concern is that they just don't score enough. Now, yesterday they got 1 goal out of Skinner, and the Leafs played a good game. But overall, I mean, they're not scoring a ton of goals, and if you look at their offense, if they're not getting production out of young guys like Aho and Teravainen, it's all on Stahl, it's all on Justin Williams, and it's all on Skinner, and that's
one win. Yeah, 1 win in their last 5 games, and 1 was an overtime loss. So I mean, it's not going to cut it.
Right. I mean, and, you know, a couple more weeks like that, and you can basically forget, you know, catching anybody in the – I mean, right now they're within striking distance of a wild card spot, but they'd have to turn it around pretty quickly.
I mean, Darling's got an .896 save percentage. Like, that's not NHL quality. It's just not. I would give him a rest, and I would start to play Ward because I got to compile some wins quickly if I'm Carolina, if I want to stay in it.
Right. Now, switching. Let me just pull up the. Let's talk about the big news that came out like just before the game. I think it was like around noon yesterday regarding what is supposed to be announced today, which is the Belmont Park, the Islanders getting the bid for the arena, or that project getting the thumbs up instead of the NYCFC Yankees soccer stadium. This is big. This is definitely big. Big news for the Islanders, because, and I even saw like a tweet from a text message that was ended up tweeted from Howie Rose, who said that this is like the best thing that's happened to the Islander franchise since their 4th Stanley Cup.
Yeah,
I think that's a little bit of hyperbole, but if it keeps the team in.
Howie's got a good sense of history in New York, and we remember he was the Islanders announcer for a while he was doing Mets duty, and so he's got a pretty good sense of it. He does. Yeah.
Well, yeah. No. I'm trying to invite Ack here, and he's not. He's having problems getting on. So, I mean, I will grant you that, but. I don't know if let's just say this: the odds of them re-signing John Tavares, which I think is put a burr under the saddle of the Islanders ownership in this situation, the odds got a lot better today with this announcement, but it's not a guarantee. And I think it's most likely going to happen. I think honestly, after the trade freeze, and we're going to talk about a few of the minor deals that happened at the trade freeze. If they don't get themselves a goaltender, I mean, there's enough there. I mean, there is, they've got the scoring, Tavares and Bailey and a young guy like Barzal. Their defense is pretty good. As long as they could get themselves a goaltender who could steal them a game every once in a while.
I think they'll be able to in the offseason or even at the deadline. But here's the thing. End of the day, this is good for the Islanders. This is good for Long Islanders. I'm starting to hear all the rhetoric, though. And some of it comes from Ranger fans living on Long Island, and then some of it just comes from overall Long Island negativity that has popped up over the years. Like, hey, is this real? Is this really going to go through, or is this one going to get shot down too? And it's like, wait a minute. The Islanders have had some bad ownership in the past, but Jonathan Ledecky's done everything he said he was going to do so far.
Yeah.
And he upgraded the practice facility where nobody asked him to. I think he's done a heck of a job. And so that's one thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to say, though, on the other side, there is reason for skepticism simply because how many times, if I had $1 for every time I heard the Lighthouse Project was going to pass.
Yeah, I know, but forget that. That was Charles Wang. This is Sterling and James Dolan, and they've been able to get things done in New York. Let's face that.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at that, they have been. So I think they're within the right group. I think all of that is good. People are complaining already about the LIRR. They're saying, well, you're going to have to change at Jamaica. And so basically, yeah, you won't be able to get there directly from all lines. But the change at Jamaica is not a big deal. You get out, you go up the stairs, down the stairs, you're back on the train. Like, it's just, I did that as a kid many times going to Shea Stadium.
Right.
It's a smidge of an inconvenience. It's not a deal breaker, especially if you go into a really nice, shiny new place that's a real great hockey arena. I think fans will put up with that.
Right. You have to face it. It's not going to be like going to the Yankee game. It's not going to be like if you're coming in and you go to Penn Station and you take, I think it's the 6 train to the Bronx. Yeah. It's not going to be like one train you get on, you get off. Right. It's going to be a little bit of work, but honestly, for somebody who drives an hour and 45 minutes to go up and cover a Leafs game, getting on the LIRR doesn't sound like a bad deal. I wish I
know, and that's, to me, that's silly. So there's that. Now we're hearing, well, if it happens on time, look, 20 months is the pie in the sky, best case scenario situation. Right. But it probably will go 24 months. It'll probably go 2 years because it's 20 months from when they break ground. They're not breaking ground tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to break ground sometime in the spring or summer. So the 20 months, in essence, then is 2 years. So the Islanders have to fill those 2 years.
Right.
I'm sure they will fill one of those years at Barclays. And then the next year, they'll either fill it all at the Coliseum or maybe partially at Barclays in the Coliseum. I could see that happening because Barclays has basically publicly stated, hey, they make more on concerts than they do on most Islander games.
I will bet you as soon as they possibly can, they'll go to Nassau Coliseum because, like you said, Barclays wants them out.
And Provorov has it in his deal when he upgraded the Coliseum. He's supposed to have pro hockey there. He's complaining about it. He's only gotten one game. He got one preseason game there.
Hey, we were talking about the Belmont, the Islanders, the building, getting the approval. I think this severely decreases any chance of Tavares leaving because now when he sees that, he sees the direction the franchise is going in. I just told Russ, if they get themselves a goaltender, they have a pretty good chance to be like to come out of the Metro. I mean, as good a chance as anybody else. So I think, the Tavares thing may be done.
There's a good chance. I'm sorry, guys. I'm using my phone because for some reason my computer's decided just to like.
That's all right.
Please wait. So anyway, so I decided because I only have a few minutes. Let me just get this right here. That's what seems to be the general feeling, right, about Tavares. That this has been the thing. He wants to stay an Islander. This is where he wants to be. He's always wanted to be there. And if you get I've always, but in my mind, I've always kind of diminished the building thing more than most people. I think the building is important, but I don't know that it's vitally important.
I think it's a part of it.
Yeah, it's part of it. But whether or not it's going to be a decision making on if he stays or goes, I think isn't still.
I think I still think he's going to talk to his agent and he's going to come out with something like, hey. Yeah, I'm going to give the Islanders the last right of refusal here, but I'm going to test the market to see what my value is, and then I will go back to the Islanders with whatever offer I get. That wouldn't shock me if he does that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm definitely with you on that. I do think he's going to. I mean, obviously, he as much as he likes the Island, he definitely needs to make sure that this organization is sound, even with this new building. He has to make sure that they're willing to do what they.
This is the only other time he's going to be a free agent, most likely in his whole career.
Right, and he's one of those guys who, even though he wants to stay there, I think he's gonna push them for more than just a good contract. He's gonna push for some real serious things that he wants to get done.
I think the only way he can push for those things and I'm not saying hometown discount, meaning like he'll take like $9 million a year or something like that, but I think he can get like concessionary directions for the franchise if he gives them a little bit of a sweetheart deal. You know what I'm saying?
He's going to.
Then he honestly, if you're asking the Islanders to, okay, pay me, I want to make as much as Connor McDavid. Okay, you're done. Okay, now I want say so in the direction of the team. No, we're paying you.
I don't think he's going to demand a say so. I think he's just going to want his voice to be heard. That's all. He's not like a demanding kind of guy, but I do think he wants to get paid top of the market value. I do believe that.
And he should be.
And he should be. And I think, honestly, the only way for him to really get that is to actually test the market and see what other teams are going to pay him.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if Ledecky is smart, that's what he'll do. Because if he just makes a blind offer to Tavares, you don't know if that's really what other teams are going to offer him.
No, he's gonna do a Stamkos. He'll go to the 5-day period. He'll have a chance. He'll probably get the tour of the city from Toronto. Like they'll have the mayor come and talk to him again. Yeah. I'm sure
the donut shops are there.
Well, he's from Toronto. He's from Toronto.
He doesn't need a tour of Toronto.
No.
But I'm sure a team like Detroit, who needs to fill that building, a team like Montreal has got a ton of cap space, but why would anybody in their right mind go to Montreal right now?
Right.
They'll and even there's been talk about Tampa Bay. So I mean, there would be it would be the opportunity to play with Stamkos and maybe win a Stanley Cup or two. But he'd probably have to take less and might take.
But I don't expect Tavares to come out today and saying, "Yeah, we're signing." It's not going to happen.
No, it's going to. There's a couple things I was checking on the other day, and I don't want to talk about it yet because I've got a story coming out about it, but something that might be happening that would keep Tavares in the Island. But there are things beyond the contract, beyond everything else that are being talked about behind the scenes that will keep him on the Island. I think.
Is he going to buy a Chuck E. Cheese franchise? I heard a rumor. No, I'm kidding. Okay.
I was into a Chuck E. Cheese recently. They have improved. Still not. They're still definitely. They're still definitely like almost the scariest thing. And
it's deafening loud there, though, isn't it?
No, they're the biggest germ factory on the planet. Like,
is he dating Carol Alt?
Because no, we'll get into it. I'll probably write about it later. Probably tomorrow. I'm waiting for some people from the NHL about whether or not it's even legal. The thing I heard about is interesting. So I don't even know if you can do it with the CBA. Real quick before I got to go, guys, because I got to go quickly. Unfortunately, take my son to his treatments. And thanks so much for having me on so quickly here. But the thing that kind of shocked me the most the last couple of days were the teams that were getting involved in. Even though they weren't, making their trades, they were talking to teams and trying to be more aggressive during the trade freeze.
Yeah.
And obviously Pittsburgh made a couple of small moves, but they were being a lot more aggressive than that. They were actually talking to a lot of people. And I guess it's not surprising when they're on the outside looking in, going into Christmas, they're slightly, and they're, I think the bigger issue with the Penguins is the big -11, goal differential. When you take away the 10 goal win that they had in the first game of the season or whatever it was, that's really like a -21 goal differential since then. Which is horrible. That's you're talking about beyond bad. I mean, when you're in the -20s goal differential, really, they're doing a lot. I mean, Michael Leighton is, that is what.
That was that. I mean, we'll talk about it after, but the thing is, I was talking to somebody yesterday about Pittsburgh, and the thing that's most interesting is they played 35 games. They got 37 points. The two teams, the Flyers and Carolina, they have 2 games in hand on them. Basically, the Pittsburgh Penguins are in last place in the Metro. And you don't expect. I mean, you can write off Stanley Cup hangover and all those things, but in an injury to Murray, they lose Justin Schultz. The Crosby did not really get going until just recently. So I think Rutherford had to make these deals, and Rutherford's always been proactive. He had to make these deals, even if it's for like little things like a backup goaltender and a seventh defenseman, because he sees. If they don't start to put things together and they fall a little bit behind, they're done.
The tough thing is their schedule, like all the schedules is going to be more divisional based the longer later we go in the season.
Right.
And January 2nd, the Penguins come in and play the Flyers. And I would like to see if Michael Leighton comes in for that game, boy, would there be fireworks.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. And I think, the other team, I mean, the Vegas Knights were very aggressive right before this trade freeze. Nothing happened. They were aggressive as both buyers and sellers, which they still are.
Yeah.
Sellers, despite what's happening. And last night I thought was the biggest win in the franchise's history. I mean, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a bit. I watched the third period was insane. It
really has reached a level of like we might as well just stop. We might as well just stop building teams. I mean, can we just give the GM of the Year award to McPhee already? By the way,
yeah, he gets it.
Well, one thing that I think is for sure, whoever the expansion would be that group that buys in with Seattle, if that does come to fruition, and it's $650 million. The first thing I'm saying is we better have the same rules that Vegas did, because. I mean, I didn't think there was a chance in hell. I thought it was going to be like the Ottawa Senators or the Tampa Bay Lightning or Washington back in the 70s, that this team was going to suck and that they were going to spread out all their UFAs at the deadline and get a bunch of future assets. But now the way that they're playing, they're 14-2-1 at home.
I know, that's the crazy thing, and then to beat Tampa coming from behind.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like a team like Tampa Tampa's. 2-0 Tampa is like, I'd love to see the record when the Tampa Bay Lightning are up to 2-0.
So I guess that Gerard Gallant guy can coach.
Yeah, you think? So they were aggressive.
Cab, please.
New Jersey was aggressive as well. Boston is starting to feel like they've got something. Like Boston is starting to.
Well, and I think they should. Yeah,
they should. I mean, they've been playing very well lately. Obviously, the Flyers were a little bit more aggressive than I thought they'd be in terms of buying. And this is the kind of stuff you'll look towards the trade deadline. This is kind of, you always get a little bit of a hint of what could happen down the line.
But you also get a blip right after the trade freeze drops off on December 28th, because teams. I mean, one of the reasons the Penguins may have made these deals is because Alexiak, for one example, Schultz just got hurt. You've got players. Some players going to World Juniors with teams. Some players, in the minors that you don't want to call up because they're not ready enough. Not ready. You need reserves, and in this 9-day window, you can't do anything. So that's why I think they were proactive. But after, they might turn around. Some teams might turn around and say, okay, we got to make this move now.
Yeah, Edmonton too. They also were trying to make a lot of moves. This was Calgary. So I think when it all plays out, we're going to see. The interesting thing to look at the trade freeze, and I'll be writing about this too. I have to really got to go, but
okay.
Thing about the trade freeze that is always interesting is this is the one, and a couple GMs have told me before that it's funny how much they actually do talk. Not usually before Christmas, not between now and Christmas, but usually like the 26th, 27th, right before this thing takes over. There's a lot of talk because it's fun to talk about to talk to other teams when they can't actually make a trade, so you're not so worried about them like taking your deal somewhere else and turning it around. So
right.
There could be some things. I do think that there's so many teams that expect it to be in a better spot than they are right now, that we're gonna see a really busy January and February moving into the deadline. So that's all I got, guys. I really got to run.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate it, and great work as always. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Hopefully see you tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, so before the trade freeze, there were 3 deals. One, I honestly don't know who Greg Chase is, Russ. So I don't, and forgive me for sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Chase. I'm sure your son is a fine boy, but I don't know him. But the Penguins were the team that made the two most, I would say, impactful moves. And as X said, Michael Leighton. Now, Michael Leighton has been moved from Philadelphia to Arizona, now to Pittsburgh, and he wasn't even the backup goalie in Arizona. It was Wedgwood and it was Ranta.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and I haven't heard anything about Jari being sent back down to the minors, but I'm assuming that they're sending Jari down to get more work, unless they're content with him maybe splitting duty with Murray, and then Leighton would be the backup with the Penguins and play very few games. But
that's what I think they're going to do.
Yeah,
it's better for Jari's development to do that.
Right. Now, if they think that they need, that they're confident, because Jari didn't do badly in that couple weeks when Murray was hurt. If they think that he can learn just as much up being a backup and playing probably 10 games between now and the end of the season,
yeah,
okay. But that developmental model that doesn't work usually.
No, and here's the thing too. I mean, what we have to put into play here is when you win a Stanley Cup and you win a couple of them in a row, you get a lot of leeway as far as bad deals, bad signings. Like Anthony Niemi was a horrible signing.
Yeah,
horrible.
But they got rid of it. He got claimed, so that
right. But you did have to give up a draft pick now to replace it. Like that's the point. Is now you're starting to nibble away at draft picks to sort of make up for those kinds of things, and so Rutherford's still going to be looked at in a really good light, but it's not like every move he makes is gold. I think that's the important thing to sort of balance out here. Alexiak's interesting because he's only played 21 games. He didn't play when Dallas came through Philly. I've always thought he skated well for a big guy, and he is physical. He had 3 points in 21 games, but he has a lot of blocked shots. And when and what I think Pittsburgh will do is install him as their chief shot blocker, and then they'll eventually move out Ian Cole. And I think they'll trade Ian Cole to deadline for something else that they need so they can go on their cup run. And I think they'll be able to do that.
I think Alexiak was moved out because Mathot probably is close to coming back.
Mathot, and now they're playing Honka regularly.
Right.
Which is fine. I mean, I get it. Dallas does have a pretty good defense now. So, I'm sure Jim Nill probably talked to Hitchcock, and he wasn't really in his plans that much.
Right.
So he got a 4th-round pick for him. That's good. At least he recovered something for him. So I think it worked really well for the Penguins. I was not shocked by the Leighton. I was a little bit shocked by the Alexiak just because, I thought he was still in their plans a little bit. But, hey, good for the Penguins. I mean, this is when you want to win back-to-back-to-back cups, you've got to be very aggressive.
Right, and if he becomes a bottom-pairing guy for them, then that's worth a 4th-round pick. So that's that's fine. Now, touching on a couple other games here, again, the Islanders with their goaltending, they lose to the Red Wings 6-3. Red Wings get 3 goals in the third period, breaking a 3-3 tie. Thomas Greiss, 5 goals on 21 shots. That's
saying it all year. It's just the goaltending's not good enough.
Yeah, and that will be their downfall. Now, just touching on some other games, Rangers win 4-1 over the Anaheim Ducks. Anaheim, I
was surprised that the Rangers did them in pretty easily. This was not a hard game for them. Lundqvist played great. Early on, Raquel had a breakaway that he missed the net, or Lundqvist got a little bit of his stick. It's hard to tell. Mm-hmm. And another shot. Lundqvist did great early, and I think that really curtailed Anaheim. And again, I think Lundqvist should be the story when we talk about the Rangers because he's had a really nice resurgence here, considering everybody was killing him early on.
This is a tough road trip for any team, and for a West Coast team coming through New York and Pennsylvania, because Anaheim was in. I think they were in Philadelphia last week. They played the Devils, and everybody was oohing and eyeing on the Adam Henrique goal that he did the alley-oop past Vatanen. The two main components of the trade happened between the two teams. But people didn't notice is after that goal, New Jersey scored the next, I think, 3 or 4 goals and took over the game and won.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think it pissed off the Devils that they gave up that it was sort of like a circus goal.
Sure.
But no, I mean, Getzlaf is back. Kessler is supposedly coming back very soon. If he isn't, I didn't see the game yesterday, so I don't know if he played. But they said he was going to be back around Christmas time. But this is the thing: it's like Anaheim has stayed close enough that with everybody there, they should be able to catch up. But you know how some teams are when they get their star player back after working very hard, they sort of mentally sit back, and then it's tough for them. They're expecting those star players to carry them, and that might be to Anaheim's downfall.
We do have to talk about that Henrique goal the other day where he basically threw it up in the air and sped past the competition, which was the Devils, to score the goal. That was maybe the goal of the year. That was an unbelievable play.
Yeah, and it was Vatanen. It was Vatanen.
It was. I know. It's just crazy that it was Vatanen too.
Yeah, but then I was like, like I said, New Jersey just bounced right back. I mean, I think if they needed a wake up call, because I think that goal made it 3-1 Anaheim, and I think the game ended up 5-3 New Jersey. So obviously that was sort of a slap in the face perceived by the Devils, and they woke up. Yeah. The Senators' struggles continue. They lose to the Wild 6-4. One of the
scored 2 goals and they still lost.
Yeah, one of the things that it's interesting fodder for for people who cover hockey to discuss what type of deal or what teams fit Karlsson. I mean. And you think 29, 30 other teams would want or could find a use for Erik Karlsson. But when you go, and I was talking about this with a reporter yesterday, when you go through like the league and say, okay, this team is in this situation financially, they're in this situation in terms of being a contender for the Stanley Cup, the list is not as big as you think. I think it probably realistically – putting together the teams that he might want to go to, teams that would spend money, teams that have a chance to win a Stanley Cup that he hasn't won, teams that can afford to pay him. There's maybe 6 or 7 teams.
Yeah.
It's not the entire league.
No, it's not the entire league. It's a very small group there, but that's what it usually comes down to when you're talking about someone with that kind of caliber of play and the kind of money he commands. So I'm not shocked at that. I mean, that's usually in most sports, if you think about it, that's what happens. I mean, how often, like in baseball, does the top guy get signed as a free agent, let's say, even though this won't be a free agency thing, by the worst team in the league or one of the bottom teams. It doesn't happen. They got plenty of room to do it. There's no cap, but they don't do it.
Yeah. And the thing now, I will pose the question that I posed to my friend. Do you think that Ottawa management? Peter Angelos, the owner of the Baltimore Orioles, is saying that he will not trade Manny Machado to the New York Yankees because he hates the Yankees and the Yankees are in his division. Even though all the speculation is right now is that Machado will end up with the Yankees next year. Unless he gets traded someplace he absolutely loves, that is the rumor du jour. Okay, right. You're the Ottawa Senators, and the best deal that you get offered is from either the Montreal Canadiens or the Toronto Maple Leafs. Do you think that them being in your division and them being your 2 biggest rivals means anything if they offer you the best package?
Yeah, I still think it does. I might still take the second best package.
What if Montreal is the second? What if Toronto is the best package in Montreal?
I'm going to really shop around, Mike. It's one of those situations where I don't want to get worse and watch these teams get better. And I don't want to – and the other problem is how many times do I want to see Erik Karlsson come in my own building and beat me? So right. I have to – you have to consider that. Right.
I mean, the thing is though is if there are very few options other than teams that you. I mean, let's just say we went through Western Conference options and there were very few.
Yeah.
Like say Chicago, if Chicago wanted to basically use him as a rental for a year and a half, because they know that, Taves and Kane, I think they're going to be good for longer than a year and a half, but your window is closing and you could use a defenseman like that. Okay, there's one, and there's a couple others, but there's not a lot in the West. More than likely, Carlson, if he's traded this summer, is going to be traded in the East. So. Sure. Yeah, a couple other games. Bruins stay hot. They beat the Sabres 3-0. I caught the third period of this game. A listless, pathetic effort by the Sabres. I think basically some of these players are waiting to be traded.
Yeah.
The Bruins are 5-1-1 in their last 7, and to X point, I think probably they see now that they got Backus back, Krejci is healthy. They're pretty much a completely healthy team. You see the things and Khudobin played again last night, got a shutout. So they're getting phenomenal goaltending from both him and Rask now.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're a lock for either second and third in the Atlantic. So
and DeBrusk and McAvoy are really been a good factor for them too.
Yeah. Jets beat the Predators 6-4. That's going to be a battle all year in that Central Division.
Oh yeah.
The game that I saw a bit of Montreal, Vancouver. Brock Besser played last night after everybody thought he was going to be out for maybe a couple months with a broken foot or a broken ankle.
The way he was crawling off the ice, it was hard to think otherwise.
It turned out to be a bone bruise, and honestly, if you're crawling off the ice 2-3 days ago and then you're skating, there's something wrong with you, because the ability to withstand that kind of pain, because I'm sure it's not 100% now. But the Canadians actually scored some goals. They scored 7. They beat the Canucks 7-5. Carey Price, I know that I saw some commentary said, Carey Price was brilliant last night. I saw a couple of the goals. He didn't look brilliant to me. Now, granted, I didn't see the entire game, so I don't know what kind of saves he made. But with Weber out, giving up 5 goals, the Canadians are not going to score 7 goals on most nights. So that, to me, even though they got the 2 points, this is a scary proposition for the Canadians, because they give up 5 goals a game. They're losing most of them.
They are. We'll see. I mean, things aren't looking good, but they have Carey Price. If he has to go on a tear, there's no other way.
Yeah. The final game that Eck just mentioned briefly, and I caught the third period of this game, and it was riveting and exciting. And which goes hand in hand with the Vegas Golden Knights. As you said, the Lightning took a 2-0 lead. The funny thing was, at 3-2 in the third period, all 5 goals were power play goals. So there was nothing 5-on-5. But then Hedman scored to tie it late, and I believe that was an even strength goal. And then the winning goal from
Theodore looked like it was even.
Yeah, it was. It was with actually. Wait a second. It might have been a power play goal.
That was a power play also. Okay.
Yeah, I know, because someone from Tampa took a late penalty. It was going to go into overtime. Yep, power play goal. Yeah, Hedman's tying goal was the only even strength goal tonight. And then okay. Are we going to get to that? Is that what it's going to be now, where basically teams are going to be content with an even saw-off at 5-on-5 and wait for the power play out? We're back to 1995, and the neutral zone trap were like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that, and it's a shame. Good goal by Theodore. Amazing that the Knights are able to do this. That's what I have to say. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
I'm speechless about it.
There's been so much like effusive praise for this team.
I know
that you've run out of words, and I don't know. Yeah. One last thing. It was funny. I was talking with somebody yesterday that Team Canada made their cuts for the World Junior very, very early.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a U.S.
U.S. had a smaller camp, though. They did.
Yeah, they had like 26
They had
players.
28 instead of the 32 Canada did.
Yeah, but they've only cut like 1 or 2 players.
One guy. They cut one guy yesterday.
Yeah, so I mean, I mean, and the explanation I got that is that Canada wanted to make their cuts early so they could have sort of like a team bonding session and them to get to know each other. And I guess I guess that can
work, man. I mean, we'll see how that works. I've got one thing too. I did a John Klingberg article for Sportsology because as of the other day, he was the leading scoring defenseman in the NHL. And I feel like he's not getting enough mention. He's never been an all-star.
Right.
He's never on an all-star team. He was sixth the year he had 58 points in Norris voting, sixth.
Right.
And he was a plus 22 that year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's a plus again this year. I think he's a plus for his career, believe it or not, because, again, on Dallas, that's no easy feat for the years that they didn't have great defense.
No.
And this is a guy who, if he keeps up his pace, will have about 65 points this year. And again, I feel like he's getting ignored by the hockey world. He is on my Norris radar. He should be on everybody's Norris radar because if he's playing good enough defense for Ken Hitchcock, remember, this is Ken Hitchcock, and I spoke to Klingberg after a 2-1 overtime loss, and he was really annoyed about that game. He didn't care about getting the point, where his own goalie, Ben Bishop, was okay with getting the point because they played 4 games in 6 nights. He wasn't. Like, he is really, Hitchcock has really gotten into his head as far as just being this sort of different kind of competitor. I'm not sure what we all thought John Klingberg was pre-Hitch, but I think Hitch has had a good effect on him. And I gotta believe he's one of the top guys for the Norris. Has to be.
I can tell you what I thought of him. His breakout year, I was like, John who? I mean, I didn't really know a lot about him.
Know about him? Okay.
Yeah, but then
I knew about him because of his play before Dallas. Obviously, he was a pretty flashy player.
but in seeing him and then learning more about him, he's got he's a great skater, pretty good skill set, and he took advantage of the playing opportunity in Dallas. And then the next year, he took a step back. I mean, and I think it was a step back defensively because overall that team was so bad defensively that he just got sort of caught in the crossfire. The Hitchcock going there could be the best thing that ever happened to him. I mean, there are some people who think that Hitchcock has had a lot to do with the development of Pietrangelo, even though Pietrangelo was a top 5 pick, but he ascended to a higher level when Hitchcock.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to give Hitch credit for Pietrangelo
or even Parayko.
Parayko.
Yeah, so I mean, but I think that influence may have something to do with it. Who knows? But yeah, I think
Klingberg for his career is a plus 31.
Yeah, I think he's a top defenseman. I think he gets hurt by the fact that he's in the West, that he's in it's if you're on the West Coast, if you're Doughty, or if you're in Western Canada and you're Mark Giordano, I think you get exposure. If you're in Dallas, the only time you get exposure is when you come to Philadelphia, or when you come to New York, when you come east. He's a good defenseman, and I don't think Dallas
right now is at .68 points per game in his career, 175 points in 256 games. If he had those numbers in Toronto,
yes,
or if his name was Morgan Riley, how much would he be celebrated?
Yeah, I mean, they'd be touting him as an all-star defenseman, which I know some people are touting Riley as an all-star defenseman, and I think that's justified. He's having a good year, but So I mean, no, I think Klingberg deserves more notice and
he's
more.
He's only got 12 PIMs too. That's another thing. As a top defenseman, 12 PIMs. That's it.
And he's young. He's what, 23,
25.
25. Okay, so he's a little older than I thought. But I mean, I believe me, I think teams that are looking for defense, if Dallas put Klingberg on the market, he'd get a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit. And I think his contract is extremely reasonable too, so that cuz he signed an extension right after that first year, so I think he's in the fours. I'm pretty sure he's in like the 4 range. Let me just I got
it here.
Here we go.
4.2.
4.25 for the next 4 years. I think there'd be a lot of people.
That's an amazing contract.
Yeah, that's Jim Nill being proactive and hitting it out of the park.
That will actually that will surpass the Wayne Simmons contract as being the most reasonable for any player in the NHL, considering he's a defenseman. Absolutely.
I think the Tavares deal is the one. I mean, it's expired.
Yeah, Tavares and Simmons were definitely the two that you looked at. But now this Klingberg one in a year or two is going to look amazing.
Yeah. All right. We will be back tomorrow. We will tweet out what time, but we will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Eck, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.